Previously on the Pocket Party podcast, Darren was watching Little House on the Prairie, and it got too exciting, so he slowed it down by watching The Waltons.
This is Morgan Freeman, and you are listening to one of the most important podcasts ever made in the history of podcasting, the Pocket Party podcast with my good friend, Darren Carter.
Oh yeah, baby, you know what time it is. Time to get that party started all up in your ear holes. Here we go. When you had a bad day and you want those bad vibes to go away.
When every day life gets harder, Darren,
Carter,
you need the party starter.
it's the Pocket Party Podcast.
With the run,
Pocket Party Podcast.
in your ear holes.
Pocket Party Podcast.
It's all in your ear holes.
Pocket Party Podcast. Or if your day needed a booster, then you need to talk to Red Rooster. Mr. Carter about to take you to school. Here we go. Don't hurt nobody and don't hurt yourself.
Is that a party in your pocket?
And we're back. Hey, everybody. It's your host, Darren Carter, the party starter. I want to thank you for tuning into the Pocket Party podcast. And if you like this episode, share it with your friends. Why not?
Why not what?
Why not? I said, if you like this episode, share it with your friends. Why not?
Okay, don't start me off with a question without giving me the whole question.
I know. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't. Yeah. You know what? It's funny. I didn't know that you had picked up. So I was like, you
were talking to them, and I combusted in the room.
Yeah. I know you picked up quick too.
Yeah, because I was ready, Darren, like
You-
a professional.
Just standing.
At 11:30.
Exactly.
What time is it now?
11:36.
11:37 by atomic time. And
I tried to. I know. I tried.
at 11:25, you were like, in 4 minutes, we're ready to go. T-minus 4 minutes. And I was like, oh, okay, I won't go back to sleep then, even though that I would like that very much. I'll just wait here like a dog by the door, wagging my tail.
People must. I know it's funny. I like how I try to shave off 1 minute to make myself look better. It's 11:36.
Right, yeah.
You're like, even though I'm looking at the same cell phone number.
I'm like, yeah, we have the same. Apple gives the same time to everybody. It doesn't.
I don't know. Mine's lagging behind 4 minutes. I don't know.
I don't see what's happening. The other day, though, I had a friend was doing me a favor, and we had agreed that we were going to meet at 4:30, and they call me up before then, and they go, "Is there any way we could meet at 2 instead? Because I have a thing with another friend." And I was like, yeah, and they were going to read some copy for me for an audition.
Oh, cool.
You know, where you film yourself for an audition and send it in now because of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm looking, while I'm talking to them, I'm looking at the thing I sent them, and I'm like, you got the thing that I sent you and everything? And they're like, yeah, so is 2 o'clock okay? And I look at the time on the phone, and it's 9 a.m. now. I'm like, yeah, I have plenty of time to get a little sleep,
Yeah.
breakfast and everything. That's fine. 2 o'clock is fine. Hang up with them. You start getting ready to go back to sleep. And then I realized that the time I was looking at was the picture of the script that I had sent them.
Oh.
And it is now actually 1:15, and I've agreed to meet them at 2 o'clock. And I was like, oh, man, I can't call them back and explain all that. I got to just get ready and go.
Dude, I had a hard time waking up today. Like, today was the first day, and we'll get into this. Let's talk about first day of school. Hold on, let me write that down so I don't forget. First day of school. However, first day of high school for my son. So everybody was all excited. We laid out the clothes the night before. We're like, okay, this is the time he wants to wake up. He wanted to wake up at 7 a.m. He wanted to leave at 7:45. That's 45 minutes. I woke up at 7:38. But my wife was going to give him a ride. But I just woke up and I was, I don't know what it was. I was just super when you wake up and you don't know like what time it is, or I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, I saw my wife because from where I could see her, I saw her walking, outside of our bedroom, and I'm like, oh, she must be back already. I wonder if I thought it was like 10, I thought it was like 10 a.m. or I had no idea. And then I kind of like started waking up a little bit, but still tired. And then I saw him, and I'm like, "You're still here?" And then I looked, and I was like, "Oh gosh, it's like 7:30." So then I went up and talked to them for a little bit, and then I was awake for maybe an hour, and then I just kind of drifted off to sleep again. And then my alarm went off, like a little bit later than normal. But yeah, today was a little bit harder to wake. Do you ever have those days where some days you're just up and at 'em, and other days you're just dragging?
I'm never up and at 'em. I've never been bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when I wake up in the day. It's always a nightmare. It's always like, oh God, why am I awake?
Yeah.
This is the worst. I hate awake. It's the worst time. I feel when I'm such a night owl, I go to sleep usually somewhere around 6 or 7 in the morning.
Oh wow.
It's so different from normal people. And if I wake up and it's like, I have like good blinds and stuff, but if I wake up at a hotel and there's like sunlight hitting me,
yeah,
it's almost like being a vampire because my eyes feel like they burst into flames when I open them.
No.
I'm like, oh no.
I know.
That shouldn't be. No one should wake up going, oh no, unless they're in prison.
Exactly.
But just on a daily basis, I wake up and I'm like, oh no, the day has started.
This guy,
the horrible, horrible day has started.
I remember this road comic taught me a trick back in the 90s. He was like, yeah, you bring like a banana clip, for the chips, potato chip clip. And he goes, and that way you can kind of, and you clip the curtain at the hotel. That way it doesn't open. You just shut
I'm a
it.
big believer in that.
He does that. And I remember...
because blinds don't, like at almost every
no.
hotel, they don't close all the way.
Right.
And so you get one laser thin ray of sunshine that comes through.
It does. It comes through that razor thin.
Slices right down the center of you.
Maybe that's why they have all those giant pillows in the hotel. You could just stack them up and build your own wall. I do that.
Yeah. You remember that? What was the movie with? It was a Christopher Nolan movie with Al Pacino. I'm wanting to say Heat, but that's not what it was. But it was Al Pacino and Robin Williams.
Maybe it was called Sleep.
It might have been, actually, because it was all about how they were in Alaska, and he's trying to pin a murder on Robin Williams because he knows that he did it, but he doesn't have evidence. But he can't sleep in his hotel because it's always daylight, and he's like, does everything to try and shut the blinds, and they won't shut and stuff, and it's a metaphor for how he can't solve this case and everything.
Wow.
It was a good movie, but I was like, man, I'm feeling the sleep part a lot,
Yeah, I know. I wonder what people that regularly listen to this podcast think, because it seems like it almost always starts out with you just waking up and then being instantly funny. It's like
I don't think you have a choice if you're persecuted every day.
It's like they think you're.
But
just
Al Pacino always looks exhausted, so I think he has a similar sleep schedule to me. Like even in Heat, when like him and De Niro they're having coffee, and he looks like he's like, oh, I gotta go to bed.
Yeah.
As soon as I'm done talking to this guy.
Well, I my buddy, the guy, another regular guest, John DeResta, that does the podcast.
Oh yeah.
He had gone to a doctor about 6 months ago, and he was having some troubles, and the doctor said, what you need to do is open your blinds. When you wake, drink black coffee and walk around outside and get some sunlight in your eyes, because that's what you need. Because he needs to get on a better sleep schedule. Because he was, the house was all dark. Then he'd go to his wood shop to work on tables and build stuff, and it was all dark. And he wasn't.
Well, that sounds psychotic.
Exactly.
That's like how murderers live.
Exactly.
I don't have a wood shop. I feel like I'm doing okay.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what, that's a good idea. So I always try to open up the blinds and start with the black coffee. And generally when I wake up, I and I know this sounds funny to some people, but I literally do like, jumping jacks and my little push-ups and sit-ups. And I just try to try to shake around, get the blood moving. Today I woke up, instead of doing that, I took a shower. Like, let me take another shower just to kind of wake up. Shower, black coffee.
You took 2 showers this morning?
Well, I took one last night right before I went to bed. Then I took another shower when I woke up just to kind of wake up again.
California is going through a water crisis right now.
Yeah.
Nestle Bottling Company comes in and just sucks out all the water
I know.
and says, "See you later, suckers," and then they drive off to Nevada where they sell it for $50 million, and we don't get 1 red cent. And you're doubling down on showers right now?
Yeah. Well, they were fast showers, if that makes it any better.
How fast? They better have been like 30-second showers.
Yeah, they were 5 minutes. They were 5-minute showers, I would say. I would guess.
Are they your 5 minutes where I'm going to call in 5 minutes, but it's really 15 minutes?
Exactly. You don't know me in time, so who knows?
Yeah. You've been showering for 14 hours, Darren.
They were exactly. They were. I put one song on, and that song is "Stairway to Heaven," and
Iron Butterflies.
Yeah. There's actually
what's that one they do with a 30-minute drum solo? Inagata Devita.
Oh yeah, gosh. There was one song I had on Spotify. I was like, or one playlist. Was it The Doors or was it? No, it was The Doors have a long song too that I'd never heard of before. But
Doors have a lot of exhaustingly long songs.
Yeah, where you're like, okay, I get the point. And then Jim Morrison breaks into some poem. You're like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, just get back to the good part. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be a totally good song, like, like chain, chain, chain. Then he'd be like singing and stuff. And then out of nowhere, he's just like, the Indian woke before dawn, and he was on scattered lawn. It's like, dude, just get back to the good part,
Yeah, that was great in the 90s when you're like trying to make out with a grunge girl or something like that. And you're like, now he's talking all weird. He's gonna ruin the mood. Stop it.
I like Peace Frog. There was a song called Peace Frog I discovered later in life. Peace Frog and is it called The Changeling? The Changeling, that's another one that I liked.
Yeah.
Changeling. Those are ones that they're a little bit. They were never on like those greatest hits albums that I bought, so I was like, I never heard of these songs before, and they were great. But then he did do like these poems in the middle of them, talking about Mother Earth and her land, and I'm like, just get back to the good part, dude. Like,
but like just don't. Nobody needs this right now. Like do like a special poetry album and put all of that on.
Oh, dude, and then oh my gosh, after the Doors. After Jim Morrison passed away, the Doors continued to put out recordings, and I put on a Spotify playlist, and the song I'd never heard of before it was something like "I'm Too Ugly to Like Get Laid" or something like that. That was like it was. I was like, okay.
I don't know why they think anyone's gonna want to listen to that. But,
I know it's like, dude, you guys lost Jim Morrison, and then they're actually singing about how
It's different if you're a crazy person like Wesley Willis. Like then it's fun, Yeah, you know him, right?
Yeah,
he was just out of his gourd, literally, and like he would headbutt audience members and stuff. And but he had great songs like "I Whooped Batman's Ass."
Oh gosh!
Where I think he was talking about fighting the guys in the costume on Hollywood Boulevard that dress up like Batman, because he said like Batman was like talking crap to him, and so Batman knocked him to the ground, and then he got up and knocked Batman to the ground. And I'm like, to him, this counts as a song. He's so crazy.
I know
that this is a song. And then he had another one that was the song was literally titled "I'm Sorry I Got Fat," and it was him like promising the audience. He was like, "I'm sorry that I got fat. Yeah. I went to McDonald's a lot. I'm gonna try and slim down."
That's like KC and the Sunshine Band. When I saw him, he was after he did a couple of songs. It was great, and then the band leaves, and then he like starts doing audience banter, and it was awesome. The first thing he says is, "Look at me! What the hell happened?" And everyone laughs. And then he's like, "Yeah, I lost 60 pounds. I'm working with Marie Osmond. I'm going to lose another 30. I'm hoping, he goes, I was gaining some weight during COVID. They were going to change the name to KFC in the Sunshine Band." And it was funny. My wife saw him again in Ventura at the Ventura County Fair when I was in Dallas a few weeks ago. And she's like, yeah, he did some more like jokes and talked about himself. And she said,
it's weird. You know as well as anyone, I think, that you got to be careful opening that door with the audience.
Oh,
of making fun of yourself. because they will come up to you afterwards. Even the nicest audience member in the world will come up to you with jokes about that same thing. I had a few ideas for you, and it's
Exactly. I
like,
got some tags
oh
for you.
no,
You could say that you were shake, shake, shake your big booty, shake your big
yeah. It's
booty.
like now I'm going to get roasted for a half hour by audience members,
I know.
and they don't know that they're being shitty.
Yeah.
They've just spent an hour with you basically saying it's okay to talk about that. It's okay to make fun of that.
Right. And sometimes there's no way around it. By the way, real quick, the name of that song was called by The Doors. It wasn't I'm Ugly. It was called I'm Horny, I'm Stoned. And maybe I just looked at them like they were ugly because it looks like three
You just
nerds.
thought about it and you're like, they have to have been ugly.
Because it's all the band members except for, and like the songs are like, well, I'm tired, I'm nervous, I'm bored, I'm stoned. Anyways, you get the idea. They're just talk about what you know, guys. But you're right though. Sometimes there's no way around that. Like I've had a couple of videos recently take off on, thank God, on TikTok and on YouTube, and the comment section, it's all strangers who've never seen me before, who don't know me, and a lot of them are actually using jokes I say in my act. But you got to kind of roll with it. Like they're like, why does this look like a cheap version of Vin Diesel, or why does this look like a low rent version of Bruce Willis? Why I didn't know. They go, this is what it would be like if Jeff Bezos had a personality. This is what they basically go over all the same jokes that I say on stage, like Bruce Willis, Vin Diesel, Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
And I just roll with it. I'm like if someone said I look like Jeff Bezos on there, I was like, no, I thought I'm actually Bruce Willis, or I just use my own words. But
Yeah.
what if it gets away from you and then they start throwing in things you haven't heard before? You're like,
Right.
like yikes, like,
You don't look like a person. You look like
Yeah.
some sort of weird seal.
Yeah, exactly. I
Leave
know.
me alone.
And then you look down, there's like 89 likes. Like, oh, all these people agree. Oh,
Right, yeah.
womp womp. Yeah, because I've actually had things that didn't go well on the internet where they're just like this is like dad jokes or whatever. But usually, well, I try to only upload stuff that I know I'm going to look good on, as we all do. But the Laugh Factory, sometimes they would just, years ago, they would just take any footage and just slap it up there and hope for the best. And that's where you'd get a lot of haters, because people, especially at that time, like 10 years ago, I think people were going to the Laugh Factory page to look for like Dave Chappelle, Chris D'Elia, perhaps, or Dane Cook, like some of these really big comedians. And then when you're not that, they would just be like, it was more fun for them just to shit on the comedians.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anybody randomly put you on the internet and then people just roast you?
No, there's like, luckily I don't have enough footage on the internet for people to do that with, but
that's smart.
You're
mysterious.
Well, it's not intentional. I just am really bad at filming, and but I have like old clips from like when they were doing Live at Gotham. They wanted us to do like topical humor.
Yeah.
And most of it is so dated and terrible that I'm like, God, I hope nobody sees this anyway.
Oh no.
But what are you gonna do?
They actually,
I put a lot of
that sucks because like nowadays a lot of people like the shows that I've done, they'll say like, we want it to be evergreen, and I had to ask, what does that mean? And they were like,
right.
that means it goes on and on. We could air it today. We could air it. So they were like, don't do any jokes about Ukraine, Russia. Don't do any jokes about COVID. Don't do any monkeypox. Don't just talk about. So that show, I guess at the time was trying to be really hip. I'm like, wow, these guys are talking about things of today. But then it could look dated as time goes by, I guess. So you were doing a lot of stuff about
like anything that like, because what they told me was like, for the show, they wanted like 7 to 10 minutes of evergreen stuff, but then they wanted 3 minutes of topical stuff that they could use to promote the show.
Oh,
and I was like, that kind of makes sense. I don't really do topical stuff, So I literally that week it was like cramming for a final. I had to write
You're
a
like,
bunch of like,
you had to wake up like earlier, like, noon, and then turn on the news and be like, so that'd be funny.
Yeah.
We click into your set and you're like, hi, my name's Bill Clinton and I love cigars. Come here, Monica. And people are like, dude, this is like.
It was almost that bad. I hated every minute of writing topical material, and but that's the only stuff that's still on the internet. And
yeah.
any of the actual set that I did, gone forever. But all the topical stuff is there.
I know a lot of comics were doing that show that they would film at the Ice House called Comedy Time, and a lot of them have regrets about doing that. By the way, if you want to show your support, every little bit helps, and I really mean that. PayPal, go to DarrenCarter.com. There's a support the show button at DarrenCarter.com. Support the show using PayPal. If you're more of a Venmo person, you like doing Venmo, it's very easy. At Darren Carter Comic. At Darren Carter Comic on Venmo. PayPal, go to DarrenCarter.com. Support the show. Every little bit counts. I'm telling you, it means a lot. It means the world. And it keeps this show going. It keeps me motivated. And it buys new equipment. And it just helps. So thank you so much. Did you ever do that?
I don't think so. I think I may have done Comedy Time, and they used like one or two clips, and they were up for a little while and then gone. But I've heard from people that some of my stuff is on Spotify.
Oh, that's cool. Hopefully you're getting
just kind of randomly on the Comedy Channel.
That's cool.
But I don't have it, so I never hear it.
I'll look for it. I remember I did Comedy Time, and it was like nothing happened. It was one of those things where like when they sold it to us, this is way before YouTube. This is like, so there was, they're like, yeah, there's going to be a thing on some of our flip phones. It's going to be like our own channel. And, and you're basically like, oh, I'm doing this thing that no one will ever see. And whatever. I'll go do a set. I'll get a copy of a good set. And then I think at the time they were giving you $25, a coffee mug, and a t-shirt. And so I remember doing it. And like, nothing really happened, whatever. And then I think then they started putting them on YouTube. And even then it was like nothing really, no heat, nothing came from it. But then one comic really took off. I mean, she did this bit and it went sensational. And the audience, you may or may not know this person. She's huge. Her name is Angela Johnson. And Angela Johnson did this bit about going to a nail salon and how the Vietnamese nail workers would, she could imitate them really well. And she's like, want your nails square or rounded? And you got boyfriend? Like, she would do the whole and it killed and it went viral, man. That was one of the first, that really just took her to the next level. Like, millions of views. She started doing clubs, doing theaters, getting door deals. Like, I remember one time I was at this club up north in the Bay Area, and I think they said she made like $40,000 off the door. And I remember also she had her t-shirts left over, right? Like the big boxes of t-shirts. And I remember like they were discussing, they were like, oh, she left her t-shirts. They're like, are you going to ship them to her? And I remember like the guy behind the scenes, the club owner was like, he goes, F it. But he said the real word. He goes, F it. She made $40,000. She could pay for the shipping. And I was just like, holy cow. Like, and so I remember right around that time, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to tape another Comedy Time. I need to go viral. And then I went up and I did another one. And of course, nothing really happened. And it was like, it might have got, I don't know, 10,000 views or something, but it never really took off. But that's the thing, right? You never know what's going to, like, I listened to this podcast once and they were talking about in show business, you don't know what that thing is going to be that can really take a person, like that really hit for her. Bill Burr, they say it was the thing when he was in Philly and he was doing the countdown. They were trying to heckle him and he was like, 14 minutes, 9 minutes. And then he would just roast the crowd. That was like the thing that really blew him up,
Yeah. Yeah, you never know what'll really resonate with people. But, so yeah, it's like I don't mind having stuff like that up, like old stuff, because you never know what people will get into.
Yeah, and especially if you get new stuff now, and then they go back and they look at the old stuff, and they're like, oh, that's kind of cool, like when he was younger. Or Hey, it's funny. I went through some old footage from the early 2000s, and I was like, this is actually funny. So I put it up recently, and it still holds up. It was because it's that evergreen bit. It's the idea. I remember I'd seen something about birds that would get drunk off fermented fruit, like berries. And so I just started acting like a drunk bird. Like, I'd love to see that. And I just become the character. And I'm like whistling and I joined. And it was kind of cool to see it. I'm like, I'm going to put it up there. But yeah, I definitely am younger. I have hair. I'm wearing like a starter shirt, like a jersey type. I don't even dress like that, but it was interesting, right, to see the old clothes. But hey, let's talk about this. Today's the first day of school for my son and a lot of kids.
You mentioned something that I found interesting. The whole family got together and laid out his outfit for the day.
Yeah, I believe he did and his mom did. I just kind of agreed. I didn't really look at it. I was like, oh, that's cool. yeah.
You didn't take a big part in that.
I was like, I'm rubbing my hands together. Come on, let me pick the socks.
Because I was thinking that could really backfire if you let your parents help you dress for the first day of school.
High school. I know. No, I think he wore like a.
I just want them to know what a good boy he is.
I know exactly. It was funny. I know exactly. See, if it was me, I would have been like, well, I'm dressed like. You're right. It was. I think he wore jeans, some cool looking sunglasses, and a t-shirt. It was a concert shirt. System of a Down. So it's
that's a good start.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
like rock and roll. Showing the bands that you like. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the first time I heard System of a Down. I was like, man, this Cantor group is really great. They're just out there.
Yeah,
because that's what I thought it was. I was like, these are just like, this is like a really hardcore Cantor singer.
Yeah,
and I wasn't too far off from the truth, but I was like, I didn't realize they were a rock band.
Oh yeah, they're a rock band. They're crazy. They're not crazy, but I love their style because they're Armenian, and my wife's Armenian, my son's half Armenian, and because he's half Armenian, he has to live in Glendale, so we have to pick him up. Hey, but yeah, their style of music is they'll be like rocking out, and then they'll stop, and then they'll be like. They're like,
yeah, they get into like old traditional sort of music. Yeah, because that's what happened. I turned in like halfway through a song is when I tuned in and they were doing that part.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's that's good on K-Rock, putting some multicultural music on here.
Yeah.
And then it just turned into rock, and I was like, what's going on? This is great.
I love it. Yeah, like there was like some song I remember like watching their concert, and like when they were in Armenia and it was like raining and they're just rocking out, and it was like, oh my gosh, these guys are like they're so interesting to watch, and it's kind of cool because they live locally, I believe. I think they live because I know a couple of comedians went to high school with them at Glendale or Hollywood.
Wow.
This I think it's called Pillabos. They're like, yeah, we went there. Remember they had that song? They're like, wake up, grab a person, put on makeup. I just to fade away. Then shake up. Wake up. Yeah.
I do remember.
Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, but I was thinking about I can't remember the first day of high school. Because I went to it was like a weird situation. I went to my 9th grade was its own separate school. It was like its own freshman. Like only freshmen went there. It was freshmen only. It was.
Oh, that's.
I know. It's kind of weird, right? It's almost like, okay, we're gonna get all the nerds and geeks and put you guys over here, so nobody.
I get it. They're trying to like protect the freshmen from everyone else, but that first year toughens you up a lot.
Right. And it was sort of near the projects, Well, actually, it was. The projects were across the street, and it was the only school I had to take a bus to. Like it was like far away, and I just remember like the first thing I can remember. See, my actual high school, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. I don't remember the first day of that, which is the one you should remember because it's like this giant school, all these, whatever.
Yeah.
I just remember the 9th grade. Like that was the first time I had to take a school bus, and I remember going to the bus stop, and it was really cool, like seeing all these different kids that I never went to elementary school with or middle school with, and you're like, wow, they all live in the same neighborhood. Like they live close enough to take the bus. And I remember there was like some really pretty girls, and I was like, wow, she lives over here. Like this is really, those are my first thoughts, you know. And I remember getting on the bus, going to that school, and I want to say this is probably what it was. The bus driver would play like the local radio station, so we're getting to hear like the radio on the way to school, and I remember
That's
like
nice.
the songs of the time, like hearing like Def Leppard, like whatever the songs that were popular in like the mid '80s, like we're hearing those on the bus. I'm like, this is so cool, like, you know, because when my mom, I remember,
I would have just played "My Baby Takes the Morning Train" every day, just to mess with the kids.
I know exactly. I remember when I was really little. Sometimes my mom, or when it would rain, my mom would take me to school. But she would, you know, she would listen to the music she wanted to listen to, and so it was like, and it was some weird like shit from the '40s or whatever, which is fine, but it wasn't anything that I was into, you know. And so like to hear like modern music that you would listen to anyway, like, oh, this is so cool. Even when I was grounded or on restriction, I'm like, on the bus, I'll get to hear the radio, you know, I'll get to hear Michael Jackson. So I remember like, you know, like taking the bus to school, seeing all these different kids, and it was just an exciting time. I just remember the energy, you know, like everyone's talking and chatting, and it was kind of cold, and that's when you first I discovered like wearing like hair gel and mousse and like, you know, like it's, you know, all that kind of stuff. You're like getting a hairstyle now. I'm dressing, getting your cool clothes and going to school. And I just remember how exciting it was, and meeting new friends and joining, you know, like the sports team, and like, it was a very exciting time. And it wasn't, I don't really remember being nervous or anything. Like I was more nervous like junior high. You know, because I went to the same school from 1st to 6th grade, and then at junior high, there's like new kids, totally new kids, and they were older. And I remember that was their first time seeing me with my bright red hair, and they thought it was. I remember them like sort of like teasing me, and I hadn't really experienced that a lot, and so it was like weird, like, whoa, like me, like you're making fun of me, like that's what I do, you know. That was a weird
Yeah, yeah, that's weird. That first day where you're like, oh, I didn't realize how it worked. Like, I guess sometimes you learn it in middle school and stuff like that, but like, or junior high, but you're like, oh, right. You have to, like, what a lot of people will do to build themselves up is knock someone else down, you know?
Yeah.
And that becomes like, it seemed to me anyway, like that becomes a lot more vicious in high school than it was in junior high, you know?
Yeah. For me, it was the opposite. Like, it was more vicious in that 7th grade, because I remember I was in PE, and we're standing in alphabetical order, you know, like the A's, the B's, the C's. And then the older kids were across. And I remember they were pointing at this kid next to me, and they were like making fun of him, saying he looks like Buddy Holly, that he looks like the rooster on the cornflake box, all this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, like, that doesn't make sense. I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, that kid doesn't look like Buddy Holly. And I'm like, he doesn't look like, I'm like, cornflakes. Like, what are they talking about? Because he has a big smile. I don't get it. And then they said he looked like, I think it was Richie Cunningham. And then, dude, it just hit me like, oh my gosh, they're actually pointing at me. Like, I thought it was the guy next to me.
No.
Like, yeah. And that was like, holy cow. And I remember, it was just a weird
You're
feeling
like,
of like, yeah.
well, let's take him outside and beat the crap out of him.
I know, exactly.
Oh, wait, they're talking about me.
And I remember talking to this other kid that had red hair. He was a year older. And I remember he went to our church. And so I saw him. I didn't really know him very well. And I was like, hey, I go, how long does it, I go, they're making fun of me. I have red hair. Did it ever happen to you? And he goes, yeah, give it about 2 weeks and they'll get tired of it and move on to someone else. They'll get used to seeing you around. And he was right. Pretty much they get used to seeing you around and it's cool, you know? I think where it flipped for me in high school, when I went to high school, is when I started like, I started rapping, you know, and it was very unusual to see like dudes rap back then, like white dudes especially. And so it was like, you know, that's where I became like, you know, an entertainer, and I started like beatboxing and come with these funny raps. And then it was like, yo, I heard you could rap. And then I would rap, and then, oh, check it out, he could rap. And then like, that was when it took off. I got into that, the speech team, where I started making these funny, doing impressions. And I don't know, I think it was better than if I was just like some quiet kid that was, you know, don't pick on me, don't talk about me. You know, I just kind of, you know, broke out of my shell and did it, you know.
Yeah, I think for me it was like in high school, they started doing a lot of plays and stuff in the theater department, and it was getting into that I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a lot better than middle school was, because there'll actually be a group of kids that are into this, that stuff makes a big difference, just finding a group that's into the stuff you're into,
Yeah. Do you remember how you dressed in high school? Was there anything particular about that you really...
In high school, I just wore black all the time, for the most part, and it was Colorado, so I wore like a big black coat, and that kind of, I was like, I just didn't want anyone messing with me, and so I was like, if I dress like that, people will move on to someone else first,
Yeah, just you're not going to know anything about my personality by my wardrobe. You're just going to know.
Right, yeah. You're going to have to talk to me to find out,
That's how I am at the airport. I wear a black hoodie. I'm just like, I don't need to, wear no sports teams or anything like that. To do, the last thing I want to do is like small talk with, early in the morning when I'm traveling. But
right.
So when I was in high school, what was popular was where you would take the bottom of your pants and kind of fold them over and make them tapered, and you'd use like safety pins. So I'd put like safety pins down my pants and fold them over. And I remember like rolling up the sleeves, kind of like they did in the 50s where they put the cigarettes in there or whatever. You'd roll up the sleeves. Like I remember I grew up in the 80s, so that was like the style. And I remember one day my senior year, getting ready for school, going, man, this is like taking a long time, like folding these pants, like the peg legs over and then putting safety. I'm like, am I going to have to do this for the rest of my life? Like, this is like, and then of course, like styles changed and then bell bottoms came back in or whatever. But
yeah,
like, I remember wearing lots of like pastels. I think that was the popular style back then too. And like prints came out. So like there was a lot of that paisley. I remember I had like a purple paisley shirt that I thought was cool. It's like,
well, I remember I was in high school in the 90s, and I remember like Doc Martens were really big at that time, but for guys and girls. And now like they're back in fashion again, but it seems like they're exclusively for girls now. Like,
yeah.
But like big combat boots was a big thing back then. But now it's like, I was like, oh, maybe I can break out my old Doc Martens again, and it's like, it seems like it's mostly a girl thing that's going on right now,
Yeah, I was wearing boots for a while, and it was kind of cool. I remember, like, because it makes you taller, kind of gives you like a, definitely makes you taller, and it
makes you taller. They were comfortable. I don't know why I ever stopped wearing them. Really.
Yeah, I used to wear like these brown boots all the time, and then I remember one of the things that I remember like actually it was Tiffany Haddish. I was at the Laugh Factory, and she's like, what happened to the brown boots? And I was like, and I was like, damn, people notice I wear the brown boots. And I looked around, I'm like, seems like none of the comics are wearing brown boots these days. Like I'm looking around, it was like everyone was wearing like those, like Joe Coy's wearing like the latest Nike, like Air Jordans or whatever, or like Delete.
Yeah. What you don't want to be is it's the freak in the brown boots.
Exactly. Like, they weren't even black boots; they were like brown boots. Like,
yeah, I would like. I lucked into a pair of shoes on Melrose that I guess someone had custom made and then decided they didn't want. And they were these black, like maroon patent leather, but like if a Chuck Taylor was made out of leather.
Mm.
And this was way before that was a standard sort of thing that they were doing. And they had little black stars on them.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And that kind of fits my personality. And I wore them for about a year, and it was probably the most successful year of comedy that I had.
Oh, nice.
I should have taken the hint from that. But then they just started falling apart eventually because I was wearing them all the time. And I, I like, you'll put like super glue in a part of it or something that to save it. They were just beyond repair, and I was still wearing them, and I was like, I better let these go. but I'm not super. I don't have the best fashion sense. I definitely don't have the worst, but there are very few. I guess the truth is I have pretty good fashion sense, but most of the items that I would really like to wear are not in my size. So I had really lucked into those shoes, and I knew when I threw them away, I was like, it's going to be rough finding a pair that actually is as good as these ones were. Like, I'll find other shoes, but it's not going to be easy to find another pair that's that cool.
You know what? I got in once I started wearing. Once I went from the boots to like, I think I bought like some hard shell, old school Adidas, and I love those shoes. I still wear them. I wear different variations of them, and then I got some other Adidas sneakers, but like, you just feel lighter on your feet. You feel a little younger. You feel youthful. You feel athletic a little bit, because like the boots are good, but they're more like grown folk shoes. Like when you're wearing boots, you're like, I'm wearing boots. We're wearing boots tonight.
Yeah, now I'm wearing boots.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to work today.
Exactly. Got my work boots on, which is crazy because now I do my stand-up. I pretty much have learned because of social media, like to film things to get it in that 9:16 dimension for TikTok, for Instagram Reels, for YouTube Shorts. You got to kind of stay within like a 3 to 4 foot. Otherwise, you're just going to keep stepping out of the frame.
Yeah.
So I've learned, but actually it's helped my comedy because I've learned to bring everything down and like bring it all in, just like an actor. You bring it all into your face and as opposed to like, I'm going to run around the stage like a lunatic. I'm over here now. It's better when you're just right in here, Some guys really bring it down and sit on a stool and like just talk to the audience. I've not really ever done that. Have you ever done that where you just sit down on a stool and just pontificate?
Yeah, mostly because I'm tired, though. It's not like a cool choice that I'm trying to make. It's just I got exhausted somehow walking up to the stage, and then I'll just sit on the stool. I like doing that sometimes, but I like being physical and moving around because I think you are kind of trading energy with the audience when you're doing that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, if there are times where it can be very effective to just sit on a stool and.
Well, I mean, it can be powerful if the material, like I did a show one time in Arizona, and it was a packed room. It was packed. It was like this hotel ballroom, and it was like this big tour that we were on, and I went up in the middle. It was all headliners, and I went in the middle, and I got a standing ovation with my energy, my everything. I gave it my all, my energy. I just killing, right? Standing ovation, and the comic that followed me. His name is Carlos Oscar, and he does a lot of cruise ships, churches, corporate gigs. Like and my point is he's very clean, and he sits on a stool and he brings it all in to his face and his voice and his stories. And he the way I remember it, he kind of struggled the first 3 to 5 minutes, like not struggled, but like it wasn't as, it was different energy, but then it built, and it built way more than whatever I did. And then he got a standing ovation. And I was like, that taught me a lesson. Like the energy thing may work in short sets but to be a seasoned comic who can really ebb and flow and connect. He was connecting way more than I was connecting. They were liking my stuff, but it was all surface level. Like, I was doing stuff like, hey, can vegetarian rappers still have beef? Hey,
right.
Bubba. I mean, it was all like silly, dumb, quick. And then this guy was going up talking about his daughter, his mother-in-law, his family, and like really connecting. And I was like, wow, I need to do that. That's like.
Well, I think it's like music. There are different, so many different ways you can approach it, and so many different things that people will respond to. That I try not too much to hold myself up against someone else's style, because I think what ends up happening is then you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole sometimes. It's like it's not me to do that particular thing, that's that guy's thing.
I know, I was watching Robin.
But some of the best stand-up I've ever seen was guys doing that. Dave Chappelle, of course. But you go back to like Richard Pryor when he would bring it all in. He was a very physical comic, but he would have those nights where he would like bring it all in and just sit on a stool and talk. Bill Cosby, everything that's happened since, of course, but if you watch Bill Cosby himself, where it's just him in a chair and it's an hour of clean material getting monster laughs and just barely moving,
Right. I got to watch that again.
There's a lot to be said for just being confident in your material enough to do that. Bob Newhart would do that, and like when you see like someone who's really manic, like Robin Williams, where he stops and kind of pulls it in and just talks about something very personal, it's a really effective thing, especially when they finally drop the hammer at the end of it that makes the story worth the journey,
Yeah.
And they drop some sort of punchline at the end that just annihilates,
Lately, I've been going back and watching like classic comedians and classic appearances, and I watched a little bit of Robin Williams on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson yesterday. And
yeah,
it was amazing. He was so funny, and I want to say the clip was probably like 12 minutes long, and I only watched about 3.5 minutes, and I'm gonna continue watching it. But he was just dynamic and just hilarious. Like, you know how he was. The minute he comes from behind the curtain, and he's just like, whoa, and he goes out and he sits down and just he's off to the races, and he's doing voices and he's doing this, and they were talking about. I mean, of course, some of it was pre-planned because he talked about Shakespeare and then Johnny,
he would pull in stuff from his act or stuff from what was going on in the news and stuff, and he would riff on whatever Johnny said to him or whatever Ed McMahon was doing or Doc or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like that to me. That's the way to approach something like that. Is just that's what they're paying you for, is to come in and just to be funny at whatever it takes.
So funny. Like at one point, somebody mentioned Shakespeare, and he was like, and Johnny goes, "Did you ever do Shakespeare?" And he goes, "Yes, I did. I wore tights, and the audience would be staring at me, be like, I don't see it. Like, it's so small. I don't see anything there." Like his genitals. And then he stood up and act like a very flamboyant director, and he goes, "Can we get this gentleman a bigger dagger?"
Yeah.
But he was so fast. It was like bang, 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 bang.
Well, I remember one of his best entrances was they had some show that was like clips from different comedy clubs, and they were just showing you what was going on at different ones. And I think he was at like Catch a Rising Star, where they had like a skyline behind him, and it's the fake skyline, and the moon is up there.
Yeah.
And he comes on stage very dramatically and posed like a dramatic actor, and then he like kind of slowly walks into the audience, and he leans over a lady that's just sitting there, and she's already dying because he's so weird,
Yeah.
And he goes, "The moon like a testicle hangs low in the sky." And so she just starts dying, and he looks at her and he goes, "My sister hernia, what news?"
Yeah.
And I was like, what a great way to start. It was just so theatrical right off the bat,
I know, man. He used all his tools. It was so good, like every voice and acting and enunciation and his vocabulary. I remember I was in community college at that point. I didn't know if I was going to continue. And a friend of mine, because I was a huge Robin Williams fan, he goes, "Look at Robin Williams." He goes, "That guy reads a lot of books. He's very intelligent. You have to have information in your head to draw on for comedy." And I was like, wow, it's true. The more you know, you're like, if you sponge everything up, then you have more things to draw on to spit it back out,
Well, and I'll tell you, I hate watching the news. It's so depressing to me.
Yeah, I'm not into the news really. Yeah.
I can't stand. I'm so glad we have so many alternate ways to get news. But I realized a long time ago, I was like, you have to know at least as much as the average guy about what's going on in the world today. Because if you go up there and you're like, hey, I'll tell you another thing about Dolly Parton, blah, 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 whatever, and Dolly Parton is having a real rough week, you're going to look like an asshole.
That's true.
You know?
That is true. Hey, by the way, speaking of escapism and not wanting to stay in modern times, I watched one of my favorite shows last night, Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, no. What happened now?
Well, I'll tell you what happened.
What
Mike.
has Laura Ingalls Wilder gotten herself into this
Well,
time?
the episode was called Bunny. And I was like, oh, because we're going through the different descriptions. And I was like, what's this one, Bunny? Like, so apparently, here's what happened. So from what I can recall, I'm not looking this up. So please forgive me if I get a detail wrong. If the audience also watched this episode, it was it's called Bunny, and it was about Laura Ingalls and her nemesis Nellie. Remember Nellie, the town bully?
Yeah, real bitch.
Yeah. So somehow Laura used to have a horse called Bunny, and Nellie got a hold of the horse. I don't know if they did a trade or they sold it to her or she needed money or whatever. Long story short, Nellie had the horse. So it opens up with Laura Ingalls. She's going to school. She's walking through the field, those beautiful fields. You see her hand reach up. She snatches an apple down, goes, feeds the horse the apple, walks into the class. The teacher says, Laura, you're late. She sits down and she's like, I'm sorry, Mrs. I forget her name. I don't know what her name is. Mrs. Crawford. We'll just say Crawford. I don't know what her name is. And she says, she goes, I picked an apple to give it to a friend. And the teacher assumed it was her. And she goes, oh, that's so sweet, Laura. And then Nellie was sitting behind her and she goes, it wasn't for you. It was she picked the apple for a horse. And everyone kind of laughs, right?
Yeah.
And then the teacher says, you got 10 minutes to finish your English test, everybody. And then Nellie goes, stop feeding my horse. It ain't your horse no more. It's my horse now. And then Laura was like...
she's doing it like they're in the prison yard.
Exactly. And then Laura was like...
She's like, my French fries now.
Exactly. She's like, well, I know what she likes because I had her for, blah, blah, blah. She's like... And then Nellie is like, you just want my horse to like you better. That's why you're feeding her apples. And then Laura zings her and she goes... Oh, you think giving someone apples makes them like you better? Is that why you always give the teacher apples? And then the teacher
solid burn.
And then the teacher's like, Laura, I told you, first you're late, now you're talking, and then boom, they go back to taking the test. After school, Nellie goes up to Laura and her sister, and she starts yelling at her a little bit, and she goes, I hate you, Laura Ingalls, I hate you. And then she gets on the horse and she takes off right on the horse, and they're like, slow down, and she starts whipping the horse, like whipping, right? And they're like, don't do that to the horse. She's like whipping the horse all mean. Oh yeah, before she takes off, she's whipping
I do whatever I want.
This is my horse now, my horse. She's whipping her, right? And then she gallops away super fast. Boom, the horse is running, and there's a tree branch, probably that apple tree, and the tree branch, boom, whacks Nellie. Yeah. She falls on the ground. She's unconscious. We're like, oh my God. Even though she just got done saying, I hate you. Laura and her sister.
So she wasn't decapitated. She was just knocked out.
Right.
How rad would that have been for Sweet Sweet?
So later, by the way, I looked at the IMDb page of this episode. And they said the way they did that is they had a plexiglass and they had the branch snap and hit the plexiglass. And so that's why the actress or the stunt person knew, like, when that happens, that's when you fall off the horse. But it looks
a 40-year-old stunt woman.
Exactly.
Cracked in the face with a dying apple tree.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. And it looks so real. It was like, wow, how'd they do that? Now you know. And so so it cuts to, she's at home. She's unconscious. She's got a giant bruise on her eye. Her arm's in a sling. She's got a cast on it. The family's all around. Laura's around. Everyone's around. And here's where the plot thickens. Basically, as they're talking, the mom is like, Nellie's mom, her name's Harriet. She's a real bitch. And she's like, Laura, you should have never done it. It's all your fault, Laura, this horse, Laura. And she's blaming her. And then the daughter kind of wakes up and she sees that everyone is doting over her. And so basically she starts faking injuries. She acts like she can't feel her legs. So the doctor's like touching her with a little needle like on her toe. She's like, do you feel this? She's like, I can't feel anything. So all they do is they start like giving her lots of candy. They're giving her the best dollhouse. They're giving her everything she wants. And
The
then,
best dollhouse.
yeah, everyone's alone, right? Except for her and Laura in the room. And Laura's like, I'm so sorry this happened. I'm so sorry. I should have never. Oh, I'm so sorry. And she's like, well, there's one way you could make it up to me. Could you do my homework for me? Just do my homework for me and everything will be okay. So now Laura's doing double time. She's doing her homework. She's doing Nellie's homework. And then she starts failing her grades because now she's just focused on Nellie. And then Nellie stands up, right? No one knows she's at home in the house alone. She's peeking out the curtains, and she sees Laura talking to a guy that she has a crush on. And then she goes and lays back down when Laura knocks on the door. And then she goes, Laura, she's like, how's Jason? And she's like, he's okay. And she's like, if I ever found out anyone were to go out with him, I would just hate them. And then Laura's like feeling super guilty, like, because they're supposed to go fishing, right?
It'd be funny if she said, nobody cares because you're such a bitch.
Exactly. So she cancels plans with that guy, and that guy's like, what's wrong? And then Charles, Laura's dad, she goes, well, you know how girls are. They change their mind. You never know. Like,
Yeah.
right. And then so then Laura one day, she gets to the house.
And the kid's like, it's real important. Settlers on average live to about 27.
Exactly.
I got to figure this out.
So then Harriet goes to Laura Ingalls' house, and she's like, that horse has to be destroyed. We have to shoot that horse. That damn horse, paralyzed my daughter. And then Laura's like, no. And then she takes the horse and
No.
she steals the horse. And they discover that she steals the horse. There's the horse. I knew you took it. So then she gallops and she takes the horse back, right? And then she's going to go take care of Nellie because she's been praying for Nellie that she'll get recovered. And then right before she knocks on the door, she hears a music box, and she's like, what? So she looks into the window. Lo and behold, there's Nellie dancing around with one of her dolls in front of the dollhouse, having the time of her life, eating bonbons. She's been faking the injuries the whole time.
Son of a bitch.
So now Laura, so she comes in. She pretends she doesn't know for a second, right?
Yeah.
So she puts her in her wheelchair, and she's
Wait,
like,
can I guess what happens next?
Yes, tell me.
She goes, yeah, I was under the assumption that your legs didn't work anymore, and now I've come to make sure of it. And then she pulled out a baseball bat and just broke her legs.
That's a good guess.
Like Misery.
I'm going to hobble you.
Yeah.
Good guess, but not didn't happen. Do you have any more guesses,
man.
or should I continue?
That would have been the best season finale ever.
I know. Well, check it out. So she puts her in this wheelchair, right? And she's like, the doctor says you need sunlight, you need to go outside. And she's like, well, I don't really want to go. She's like, no, come on. And she's oh yeah, by the way, she's already sitting in her wheelchair. She's like, nope. So she's like, she opens the door, pushes her outside, and now they're walking down the street, going she's like, Laura, can you slow down? She's going really fast because Laura's pissed, man. She knows she's been doing her homework, making her cancel plans with her boyfriend, blah blah blah. She is so pissed, and so she takes her. And
don't mess with the frontier woman.
Right, the frontier woman, right? They're in the town, but it's kind of on a hill. And she looks down and she starts waving at Harriet, because remember, Harriet just busted her for stealing the horse. And she goes, she goes, hey, we're up here. And she's like, Laura, she's like, you have, we're going to shoot that horse. And she's like, here's Nellie. And dude, she pushes her down the hill and lets go of the wheelchair. And the wheelchair starts rolling. Da, 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 da. She's like, oh my gosh. Even my wife was like, whoa. And the wheelchair goes all the way down and she lands in the pond. Boom. And then, of course, she stands up because she doesn't want to drown.
Right.
And that's where it's revealed that she's been faking it. It's a hoax. Busted.
That's a pretty big gamble on Laura's part, because if she'd had the sense to just lay there and pretend she was drowning.
I know, right? So
that could have been real bad. They'd have been like, what are you doing, you psycho?
Yeah, so then it cuts to like a happy ending where the Nellie's father, he lets Laura keep the horse. He's like, that horse, you take better care of the horse. He almost he almost as if to say, like, I wish you were my daughter. Like, he's giving her a hug and he's like, yeah, you take great care of that horse and you're such a kind-hearted person.
I'm sorry that my daughter sucks.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like that. And I know you've had a lot to deal with, but a lot of my wife was angry because she thought that she was really paralyzed, and I'm so sorry this happened, blah blah. Here's the horse, blah blah blah. So then you see It's a happy ending, right, with Laura. But then you cut to Nellie in her bedroom, and she's looking out the curtain, and she's just so pissed, and she's just so angry, and she just starts. She takes like I don't know if it's like a hammer. She takes some kind of tool, and she starts screaming, and she's just like destroying her own room. She's smashing pictures. There's a horse statue. She smashes the statue. She starts wailing away on the dollhouse. And her little brother's like, stop it, what are you doing? He's like, give it to me. And she's like, what would you do with it? And he goes, I could sell it and get some money. And she's like, you. And she's like going nuts.
You.
Yeah. And it's funny because like earlier in the show, when like the brother and the sister were like, I was like, oh, I wish I had a brother or a sister like that. That looks so sweet. And then
she's like, you dumb.
Yeah, and then cut to when she's going nuts and destroying the dollhouse and going crazy. My wife was like, do you still wish you had a brother, like a sibling? I'm like, no, I don't. And
yeah, not if they're like that.
And I was like, wow, what a crazy ending. But guess what? Here's the best part. It wasn't the ending. She's going nuts. It said, to be continued, part 2 next week.
And then in part 2, they're riding through town, and the horse sees her and just kicks her in the head.
Yeah.
And her brother's like, yeah.
I know. Exactly. Oh, yeah, that was another thing. The brother discovered that she was faking it. And she goes, she's you better not say
you know what?
Yeah.
I vaguely remember this episode, especially, like, I remember the wheelchair in the pond and, her standing up and all that stuff. But you know what else I remember? Correct me if I'm wrong. The doctor tested her by putting a needle in her foot.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. That's so
and
true.
she was psychotic enough to fake it.
Yep,
right?
That's right.
Wow.
You know what? I think I vaguely remember it too, because I remember thinking like, oh, when you're sick, people give you nice things, and so that might have encouraged a lot of kids to I'm going to pretend to be sick and get to get more toys and stay home in a new dollhouse.
Yeah.
All that. So yeah, that's what happened, and so part 2's coming up, and I was briefly, and this isn't a spoiler, this is just a description. Apparently part 2 is going to be involving the mother makes it up to her daughter by buying her a super expensive thoroughbred.
Oh, wow.
The name of the episode is called The Race, and they're going to race their horses.
Oh.
And my wife,
I don't think she admits to it on the show, but maybe in the books or something, you'll find that when Laura gave an apple to the horse, it was full of cocaine. She had planned this out all along.
Yeah. Maybe that was it was so funny because my wife was like, really? Like she buys her another horse after thinking her own daughter was paralyzed on a horse? Like, wow. It's and it's the very next episode. It wasn't like a year went by. It was crazy, right? That's
especially after she trashed her room and all that stuff.
I know. It's there was a,
we just found out that she's a sociopath.
Yeah.
And let's buy her a brand new horse.
I have to read this to you because I saw this thing. There's this website. I can't believe I went on there, but it was talking about this episode. And the subject line, all bold, it says, enough already. Laura is not a saint.
Yeah.
This lady or whoever is going off on Laura. It says, I can't take it anymore. I officially dislike the character of Laura Ingalls.
I officially dislike.
Yeah. She is a manipulative, spoiled, self-centered little brat of a child whose parents just overlook everything she does. Laura does not know her place as a child, especially a child of the 19th century. She consistently inserted herself into the lives and happenings of adults. She commits crimes.
Hang on.
Yeah.
I have to stop you here. I know that it's a lady that wrote this, but the characterization that you're doing makes it sound like Tommy from the Comedy Store. And it's hilarious just picturing him hating Laura Ingalls so much.
Breaking and entering, theft, embezzlement, lying, and cheating.
Well, we'll get her up in the belly room.
Everyone seems to overlook her behavior. She means well. No, she damn well doesn't. She just wanted her own way all the time, and she is only ever sorry when she's caught and is never punished for her behavior. How is it that even the mother knows her, quote, place in the marriage of this time period? Not to question or argue with her husband's decisions, but not Laura. She just yells and disobeys him if she doesn't agree. Yes, Nellie is over the top mean, but Laura is no saint. She's nice when she wants to be, and sneaky, manipulative, and disrespectful. She's not an evil child, but I just wish Pa would punish her when necessary. But at the end of the
I
day,
bet she wishes her pa would punish her
and then
in a different sort of way.
and then it ends with this. But at the end of the day, I prefer Nellie over Laura. At least you know what you're getting with Nellie. And by the way, there's only 1 thumbs up on that comment and 13 thumbs downs.
And that's not true. It's like that whole episode just said you really have no idea what you're getting with Nellie because she's cat shit crazy.
Right. Exactly. Well, I'm not.
I think this might be the actress that played Nellie.
I know. Right. Exactly.
Writing this manifesto about her,
She's like, hey, I want to do some of those Comic Con conventions or whatever. Those, where they
yeah.
they sign autographs and stuff. Like, time has shown that Nellie was the true hero.
Yeah, she's gonna start a whole meme campaign about how much Laura sucks and Nellie rules.
She might have been one of the meanest television characters in history, right? I would say definitely in the top,
Way over the top. It's like her and Danny DeVito on Taxi
right.
are right up there at the top.
I know. Gosh.
Danny DeVito on Taxi, by the way, rules.
I know.
I don't know if you've seen that show recently or anything, but the cast that they pulled together for that thing.
You know what? That'll be my homework. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to look it up on YouTube and see some clips or some. I did that.
I think it's on like Amazon Prime free or something like that.
Oh, cool.
But, with Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd, Andy Kaufman, Tony Danza, Mary Lou Henner. It just had such an amazing
You know what,
cast to
listeners?
work with.
If you get a chance, leave me a comment in the YouTube on this episode and tell me. Either leave me a link. Yeah, leave me a link to a clip or an episode on YouTube if you could, because I want to check out some. Like, I don't want to just comb through every episode. I want to know, like, this is a great scene or this is a great episode. Like, I did that a few years ago with, or maybe a year ago with The Odd Couple, and there was this great scene with between those two characters over, like, somebody sent me this thing, and I'm like, that is hilarious. And it was all about a parking garage, like having to pay for parking.
Yeah. Well, on the very first episode of Taxi, they did a very smart thing because nobody knew who Danny DeVito was at that time or anything like that. But for the first half of the episode, he's in his office. And so you're just seeing like his head basically behind the desk. And he looks very imposing and powerful.
Oh, yeah, because he was kind of high up there, right? Like, didn't they make him higher?
Yeah. Yeah, and so finally someone says something, and they're like, yeah, we're not afraid of you. And he goes, don't make me come out of this booth. And they make him come out, and of course he's Danny DeVito. And it got such a huge laugh, and it was like he had a lot of balls to do that, and to like, he was such a good actor that he made it work too, But it was like, it was such a priceless moment and set up that character so well for the rest of the series, and Judd Hirsch was so good on it, man. Yeah, it was a good show.
That's good. I'm going to watch that, and that is really good. So I got some homework.
It's no Little House on the Prairie.
No,
but
I know.
It's a very good show.
Even Little House, you have to watch it in small doses. I mean, I've been wanting to watch it for a while, and it's taken me like 2 months. Like, where I'm like, I have to it's perfect for like Sunday night programming. You know what I mean? I'm like, the week is done. The weekend we're winding down. I want to go to bed early so I can, be energetic for the podcast. And I'm like, okay.
I remember the episode of that show that really turned me off on it was the episode where they go down to some creek they've never been to before or whatever.
Yeah.
And Laura Ingalls goes swimming, and she gets home, and she's got leeches all over her. And I was like, nope, I'm done with this show forever. Because I was a little kid, I didn't know what leeches were. I didn't know that was a thing that people had to deal with. And I was like,
that's funny. It's almost like, let me tell you this, though. It's almost like an exercise for me personally to be able to watch this. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm going to leave my phone way over there. I'm going to see if I can just... And you know what I mean? It's because I don't really do that with anything else. Everything else, I'm kind of scrolling around, like the TV's on. I'm not really watching it. Like, that's the only show where I'm like, let me see if I can just do this, just to kind of take in, what it was meant for, to tell a story. And it's kind of working for me so far.
Yeah.
It's neat. Anyways, enough of this little more bumpkin activities. Yeah. Hey, I'll catch you around, man. Have a good one. And if you guys are listening, this week I am at the Off the Hook Comedy Club in Naples, Florida. Right now, I'll be there right now, Wednesday and Thursday. I think it's like August 17th and 18th. I'm not sure, but I know.
And then you're going to Naples, Italy, the very next night.
Exactly. Yeah, 17th and 18th of August, I'll be there, and then I have some more stuff coming up. But we're around and we're doing stuff on the internet, and check us out on YouTube and Mike Black on Instagram.
Share it with friends, comment, subscribe, all that stuff.
Yeah. You guys, let's get Mike to do a special or an album or something, man. He needs to get his comedy out there more, And
that's a great idea. Let's do that.
Let's do that for real, because you're too funny and to not let the world know. All right, Mike, dude, thanks again for hanging out with me on the Pocket Party podcast, and I'll hope.
Always fun hanging out with you, buddy. Dude, have a great one.
You Bye-bye. Too, man. Have a great day. Thank you, buddy. Bye. Oh, look at you. You made it all the way through the Pocket Party podcast, and I'm serious, man. Go to YouTube and just check out some of the videos. And we're actually making some waves. I gained a lot of subscribers since we last talked. Like, one of the videos took off, and it's doing really well. It has over 80 or 90 new subscribers came to YouTube, which is really hard to get because you have to be signed in. And the TikTok is growing, and everything is doing really well. And I want to thank you guys for being with me since hopefully day one. Or I know a lot of longtime listeners, and I do appreciate you guys. And just from the heart, wanted to say thank you. All right, guys, we'll see you soon, and keep starting that party in your ear holes.
Pocket Party.